Sagittal craniosynostosis is the most common form of craniosynostosis. The sagittal suture is a line in the center of the head that goes from the front to the back of the skull. This suture can be fused in different places. Fusions are characterized by being anterior, posterior, or complete, meaning that both the anterior and posterior regions of the sagittal suture are fused. The resulting growth of the head was explained by German doctor Rudolf Virchow as being decreased in areas perpendicular to the fused suture, but increased as a result of compensation in areas parallel to the fused suture. With an anterior sagittal suture closure, this growth pattern causes two outward appearance changes. First, frontal bossing, otherwise known as a protruding forehead. Second, a narrow head due to the growth being inhibited on either side of the suture. Based on this, the goals of surgical treatment are to, first, expand the narrow skull. Second, shorten the back to front distance of the head. And third, to eliminate the frontal bossing in the forehead region. One example of a surgical procedure used to accomplish these goals is called the anterior pie procedure. This procedure is named in part after the mathematical symbol pi, which the incisions resemble. To perform an anterior pie procedure, first, two bone flaps are made on either side of the sagittal suture, and the coronal suture is removed. In this diagram, these areas are shown in a shaded pattern. This leaves a craniotomy, or a temporary removal of bone flaps, in the shape of the symbol pi. Second, reshaping is done by the surgeon, and the segments of bone that were removed are connected together again. This process is patient-specific, and the surgical team will tailor any reshaping to the unique patient's head. Ultimately, this procedure accomplishes the correction of skull narrowness, shortens the back to front length of the head, and corrects frontal bossing. In posterior sagittal suture closures, the excess growth occurs in the region of the occipital bone in the back or posterior area of the head. This follows Virchow's law of the excess growth occurring in an area perpendicular to the fused suture. A protrusion in the back of the head, known as an occipital knob, can form due to this compensatory growth. An example of a procedure used by surgeons to correct posterior craniosynostosis is called a reverse pie procedure. Similar to the pie procedure described in cases of anterior synostosis, the first step is to remove bone flaps on either side of the sagittal suture, as well as the lambdoid suture. These bone flaps are shown as the shaded regions in the diagram to the left. Second, to correct the occipital knob as discussed before, surgeons can remove bone and remodel it to have a normal contour. Typically, this is done by removing a circular disc and cutting out pieces, resulting in a spoke-like appearance so that it will have the ability to be molded to the head. Another type of head shape that can result from posterior sagittal suture closure is called a golf tee anomaly. The head shape is characterized by narrowing in the back of the head and a very prominent protrusion of the occipital bone in the back of the head. This type of anomaly presents two main goals for surgeons. First, to shorten the protruding skull in the back of the head, and second, to widen the back of the head. To accomplish this, a flap containing the sagittal suture is removed to allow the back of the head to widen, and the occipital bone in the back of the head is reshaped by contouring the head as previously discussed. A third type of anomaly that results from posterior sagittal suture fusion is called bathrocephaly, which is the appearance of a podium or shelf near the occipital bone towards the back of the head. To correct this type of head shape, a technique called a paramedian vault can be used by surgeons. This figure shows the sagittal suture and protruding podium. this area of bone is cut and the podium is corrected by inserting bone into the sagittal suture. This produces a smoother suture without the protrusion. Depending on the individual, surgeons can continue to contour the bone using a variety of methods, some previously discussed in this video. Finally, we'll discuss complete sagittal synostosis, where both the anterior, or the front, and the posterior, or the back, parts of the sagittal suture are fused. The surgical goals presented in cases like this are to first widen the head, and then second, correct frontal bossing, and third, contour the occipital region. You can see a combination of the goals from anterior or posterior sagittal synostosis combined to result into these goals. These goals are accomplished by using a variety of techniques that can include removing and reshaping the frontal flap, occipital or back of the head flap, and or the parietal or the side of the head flap. Doctors will work hard to create a unique care plan that fits the needs of each unique individual. The information from this video was obtained from a peer-reviewed journal article cited in the video description box below. And for further information, you can visit my website, GabrielleKellyMed.com, for my social media accounts, parent and family resources, and more. You can also click below to view my channel and view more videos like this one.